Matteo here. Welcome to Retro Ranking and welcome to a new spin on it. Now this is inspired by the Rock Beast. We communicate on Instagram and he sends messages and we talk about music, and he's a nice chap, and he's, for someone so young, he loves lots of good stuff. One of the bands being Genesis, and he sent me a message about 3 or 4 weeks ago and said, what's your favourite track off each Genesis album? Now, he sent his list, and it was a super list, and I thought, yeah, I'm going to respond to this. And I sat down one day having a cup of tea, and I thought, why don't I make it into a video? So thank you, Rock Beast, for inspiring me to do it as a video. So it's some Genesis 1 from 15. So I've picked my favourite track off each of Genesis albums, and we're going to start. It's no ranking, we're going to do it in order of release and just talk about my favourite tracks, just a little bit different. So no ranking on this one, it's just a pure going through tracks. So we're going to start, of course, in 1969 with this album, From Genesis to Revelation. Now there are a couple of tracks. There's another track on here that was in contention, and that's When the Sour Turns Sweet, a really strong track, but I've gone for In the Beginning because there's two reasons it's my favourite song. It's got a fantastic bass line from Mike Rutherford, and I love Tony's weird keyboard on this, and a 16-year-old Peter Gabriel singing out of his socks, and don't forget there's some nice little guitar work from Anthony Phillips on that. It's a really good track, and I do like that one a lot. So we'll move on to 1970 and the album Trespass, and there's only one track on this album. It's probably one of the heaviest tracks this band ever done, and it's their 9th. We start off with that great heavy ba-da-ba-da-bum, bum, bum, and that quirky Peter Gabriel vocal. It's got another fine guitar solo from Anthony Phillips. I mean, Stagnation is another of my favourites, but it's a very underrated album with one of the best tracks of the early Genesis era. Okay, we're going to move to 1971 and the Musical Box. Now, God, this was tough, this one, because we've got great songs like The Return of the Giant Hodgeweeds, Harold the Barrel, Fountains of Samosis, but of course gone for Musical Box. It's one of my favourite Genesis songs ever. The little bit of flute, and I love the majestic harpsichord at the beginning, and then it builds and builds up to that great finale. And there's some lovely little backing vocals from Phil Collins on this, and it's a great drum from Phil on that track. 1972, and we've got To Foxtrot. A few contenders of here, of course. Watch All the Skies, Get 'Em Out by Friday, but there's only one thing on this that's magnificent. The whole album's magnificent, but Supper's Ready. It's the finest thing Peter Gabriel ever wrote. It's a fantastic song. The drumming on here from Phil Collins is fantastic all the way through. Okay, we will move on to 1973, Selling England by the Pound. Oh, my favourite album. So many contenders on here, isn't there? Dancing with the Moonlit Night, Cinema Show, Battle of Epping Forest, but there's only one track on here. It's the best thing that Steve Hackett played a solo on, and it's the fifth. Highlights of this, of course, is actually Tony's piano bit at the beginning, and then that lovely flute, and then Steve Hackett's solo guitar is just magnificent. Okay, up next, of course, from 1974, The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway, Peter's last album. Oh, so many good tracks on here. The Lamb itself, The Lamia. But I've gone for the beautiful Carpet Crawlers. It's one of the most haunting, eerie tracks on the album. It's one of the highlights, and it's one of Peter's best vocals on that album. So Peter's left, Phil takes up the vocals, and we have 1976 Trigger the Tail, another strong album. Dance on a Volcano, squonks on here, but I've gone for the beautiful ripples. It's so pastiche, and the singing on this is beautiful. It's one of my favourite tracks of this period of Genesis. 76 was a big year because straight after that, a few months later, Wind and Wuthering came out. Oh dear, there were so many tracks on here that could have been it. Blood on the Rooftops is brilliant. On a Mouse's Night, another track. But my favourite track on here is a beautiful track called One for the Wine. I like its wonderful pastiche start, and then that build up, the drumming from Phil is good, and then Tony Banks is on fire with that keyboard run on this. It's a fantastic track. So then Steve Hackett decides to leave, doesn't he? So there was an album called And There Was Three. Some good tracks on here. The Lady Lies, Burning Rope. But the one that I went for from When There Was Three is Deep in Motherlode. I love the keyboard work on this. It's just super stuff. From an album that was starting to change their sound, but Deep in Motherlode is just a brilliant track. So we move on to the 80s, and of course Duke. I've cheated here a little bit, but it's one of them tracks you can't have one without t'other. I mean, it's got Behind the Lines is excellent. I do like turn it on again, but for me the best stuff here is Duke's Travels Duke's End. You can't have one without the other. Magnificent track. The best track off this album. This was probably the last sort of really proggy album they did. Okay, we'll move on to 1981. It's my least favourite Genesis album. On here, what's good? It's about 3 tracks, 4 a pinch. Me and Sarah Jane's alright. Abacab's alright, but for me, again, it's Dodo Lurker. Absolutely stunning track. Best of the tracks on here. The rest of the album I couldn't give a toots about, but that track I love, Dodo and Lurker. Then we get on to Genesis from 1983. Ooh dear. Side 1 is it's a good side. Side 2 is absolute garbage. So out of the 3, I do like Mama. I really do. It's probably one of their best singles as well. There's not much to contend with her. Okay, we now move on to 1986 and Invisible Touch. Oh dear. This was tough, not because there were so many good ones, but there's so many bad ones. I like the Brazilian, the instrumental, and I don't mind Tonight, but I do like Domino. It's got a bit of prog on there. It's poppy, but it's proggy as well. It's best track on that album. Okay, then we have Phil's last album, We Can't Dance. There's some real dodgy stuff on here. I Can't Dance is terrible. And then you got that Dower, Hold On to My Heart. But for me, it's Driving the Last Spike. I like this, lots of reasons. It tells a great story of railway navvies, and that's something I'm interested in, and it's probably got some of the nicest keyboard work. Fading Lights is good on this, but that's as far as it goes with me. Then we come to the last album they put out, and that was from 1997. Phil had left. They brought in Ray Wilson. Calling All Stations, 1997. Now, a lot of people poo-poo this album. There are some really good tracks on this album, I love Alien Afternoon. Shipwrecked is good. And the wonderful It's Not About Me ballad. But for me, it's that title opening track and the first track on the album, Calling All Stations. I think it's probably one of their best songs in years. It's that driving riff. It's a great vocal from Ray as well. I do love that song. So there we go. There's all my favourite songs on Genesis albums. So there we go, Rock Beast. I said I'd do it, and that's the way, and I enjoy doing it like this. So there are other ones, and if you watch the previous video, you'll know I made a bit of a slip up. So you know what's coming next. So I've enjoyed doing this. It's nice to go through these albums and listen to some of these great tracks. Okay, that's all for today. Tomorrow is Marathon Day, and we've got a viewer's request, and it's for Chris de Berg. Quite a few albums to go through tomorrow, so it'll be a long, not a long one, but a big one. So have a great day. The sun is out. There is not a cloud in sight at the moment. It's beautiful blue sky out there already. So it's going to be a nice day. So bye for now.